Well, that's like Alabama, or not, I don't know Alabama did, but Ole Miss spring game this past week and Auburn spring game coming up. The way they do it, they have their first team offense and their first team defense are on. They play against each other, and their second team offense and second team defense play against each other. Maybe the first team offense and the second team defense will be blue for Auburn, maybe, and then the first team defense and the second team offense will be white. That's the way they.
That's what you're supposed to do.
That's the way they do it. That's the way Ole Miss did this past weekend, and I saw that game. I watched their preseason or their spring game, Ole Miss's, and I wouldn't.
Did you notice how pretty the bleachers Ole Miss fans looked? They didn't have anybody in the stands.
Yeah, they got some
nice looking bleachers.
They got chairs. They had the stadium seats in there, the bolted in stadium seats in there. Well,
they got Jonathan Wallace back, don't they? I mean, not
Bo Wallace.
Bo Wallace.
Jonathan Wallace is back up at Auburn.
Oh, yes.
For now. Yeah, Bo Wallace is back. He looked pretty good, and they got a redshirt freshman. I guess he's a redshirt sophomore this year. He's about 6'6", and he looked pretty good. But everybody they're talking about, it's Bo Wallace's job to lose, and they don't see him losing it. But that kid looked. If there was a bright spot, it was that backup quarterback Ole Miss's guy. He's going to be good.
Isn't Bo a senior?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think he is.
I had run into former Southern Miss player Derek Nix, who's from Attala, and he's an assistant coach over there, and they seem to think this is their year, which kind of scares me because Alabama has to go to Oxford.
So does Auburn.
And we've not done well over there in Oxford recently. Because in 2003 we lost to Eli Manning. And
they thought last year was their year too.
I know.
They opened up spanking Texas that first ball game, and I was kind of thinking this could be. Well, then they got their SEC. They got the SEC schedule. And what they finished 6-6.
Mm-hmm. And we shut them out, and then Bo Wallace quit running his mouth.
Yeah.
And I think he
I
came
forgot
back
about
down to
that.
earth. Yeah.
Because there was a picture on Facebook where his face. It was quote that they could score on anybody at any time or something to the effect. I forgot the word. And then, of course,
we wasn't afraid of Alabama.
Of course, now he didn't lose the game against Ole Miss. I blame the Ole Miss game. I believe that on Freeze because there was 4 times they had. There was 2 or 3 times they got inside field goal range. They could get field goal, and he chose to go for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, they had the number 5 recruiting class last year. Ole Miss did, and I think the Kimdichie brothers, both of them are suspended for the first 3 games of the season.
Is there going to be anybody to play football this year?
I don't know. There's going to be a lot of backups getting some shots this year, it seems like. Well, it's something we talked about during back when all the recruiting was going on National Signing Day. You remember there was a player we talked about whose mama grabbed his letter of intent and took off running with it where he couldn't sign it.
Mm-hmm.
That was Malik McDowell that was going to sign with Michigan State, and his mama took off with his papers. Well, he got to sign this week.
She had some cash she didn't want to return, evidently.
with Michigan State. I think that's funny. He's just now signing. 2 months later, he finally got he's one of the Spartans. His mama let him sign the papers. That's funny. And then another thing that happened this week is, all the hype's been about Texas A&M and who's going to replace Johnny Manziel and Mike Evans, and Kenny Hill, who was the number 1 pick to replace Manziel, and Ricky Seals-Jones, who's picked to replace Mike Evans. They've both been arrested. Hill was arrested for public intoxication, and he's been suspended from the team. He was found passed out in a planter outside of a place that was full of flowers and rocks. And Seals was arrested for disorderly conduct for cussing at a bar. Well, my thing is, these kids are 19, 20 years old. How are they in a bar?
How do you get arrested for cussing in a bar?
I thought that's what you did in a bar.
Disorderly conduct for cussing outside a bar.
Oh, outside, okay.
Okay, you can't cuss outside the bar.
In College Station.
Oh, okay.
So they've both been suspended.
They're pretty strict about that cussing out there in Texas, aren't they?
I think we're in the wrong business. I think we need to become bail bondsmen and just set up shop at one of these campuses.
That's right.
Campuses.
Man, I'm telling you.
Or it would almost be good just to hire a couple of guys just to follow these players around and keep them out of trouble. I mean, you're going to invest so much money in a player.
Well, these schools
you
do
go
have
broke if you're a Georgia fan.
Exactly.
Yeah, they do have.
They do have that.
People for that.
Uh-huh.
But how do you take care of 100 and something players they have on scholarship?
Well, supposedly, I got a friend of mine who's friends with a guy that owns a bar in Tuscaloosa, and allegedly that if any players come in there, I can't remember if a coach gets called. There's like two assistant, like a handler, and two assistant coaches get called and they're just kind of be on standby. And then if they get arrested, they end up having to call Coach Saban. But the assistants are there. Their job is to make sure they don't get arrested, because it's kind of makes sense, because I remember when Sheila was at Alabama, those players getting in trouble left and right.
Oh yeah.
And in Saban's first year, a couple of years, there was some players, but there was like a 2 or 3 year stretch where we only had 1 or 2 players that got in trouble.
Yeah.
And but he finally got a hold of it. But I assume it's like that in most college towns.
Oh yeah. Well, Jimmy Johns got arrested for selling dope in the parking lot.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how loose everything had gotten, and I give kudos to Mike Shula. I mean, we didn't have a coach, and I've heard people badmouth him, but I tell you, he came down here, he led us through this depression that we had, and I give him kudos. I mean, he did his job.
Yeah,
I mean,
in the 50 plus games he was as a head coach, we only got blown out 3 times.
Mm-hmm. And even in that worst year, we were in most of those games, and then we'd get beat in the fourth quarter. I remember the overtime loss to Georgia. I mean, we scored 3. Georgia had 1 play, scored a touchdown, game over. But, I mean, we were in those games. And even that 2004 year was one of the most fun year for me. I mean, I knew we weren't any good, but we played. We were in about every ball game we played in, and we couldn't win them.
We were in every game because basically discipline and the strength and conditioning, because I've talked to 2 former players that were on those teams, and Coach Sheila he left it up to the individuals. Like he was in the NFL. It's like it's up to you to make your motivate yourself.
And kids, you can't do that with kids. No.
And it'd be amazing to see if Scott Cochran were at Alabama during that time when Sheila was there, how much different we'd have been. Of course, at the same time, they might not would have fired Sheila and gotten Saban.
Exactly.
So,
I mean, but I know an Auburn buddy of mine talked to me the day before we let Shula go, and he said, "Well, what do you think about Shula?" It was the end of the season. I said, "Well, he's our coach. I'm behind him." Okay, they fired him. They said, "Well, what are you going to do?" And I said, the guy asked me, he said, "What do you think?" I said, "Well, whoever we get, I'm going to be behind him. I'm an Alabama fan. I mean, you ain't got any choice." And I didn't get behind Dennis Franchione very much, though. I wasn't ever sold on him or Bill Curry.
Well, we're coming up. We're running out of time for this week. We'll continue this discussion and let you know.
Thanks for being with us, Kevin.
Let you
no
know
problem.
when it's going to air. Yeah, Kevin, you need to come back.
Yeah, I've got another story about Rich Rodriguez. We'll have to continue next time.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Well, we got Brody Kroll coming up in a couple of weeks, and we got some new places you can find us. You can find us at the iTunes store at This Week in College Football. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, all This Week in College Football. And go on there and give us your feedback and let us know what you think about the show. And we'll see you we'll talk to you again next week.
Thank you.